Hello and welcome to yet another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Today on the program, I want to talk about the future of podcasting and how many people, some of them might be my clients, try to not be mean to your clients today, Evo, are micromanaging themselves out of future-proofing. Let me kind of explain what we're going on here. So this morning I awoke to some news, as I always do. I'll see what's happening in the podcasting space over the weekend. It's Monday. And there's some interesting information out. The company that owns Spreaker has identified and said, hey, you know what? It looks like a crazy number, like almost 10% of the downloads people are using, that downloads happen on our platform, are going to the new Apple Watch. Which has been a podcatcher, if you will, since September, I think. So their numbers said, hey, we're getting a lot of downloads. In fact, it goes up to 13% over the weekend. So, that's interesting. There was also news that the new smart devices by Google, the little screen, I think it's called a HomePod, might be it. It's got actually a video screen on it, that podcasts are showing up there, and they look kind of nice. Actually, they look almost exactly, as I can see from the video, like CarPlay looks when I'm playing a podcast in my Mini. So that got me to thinking that we are coming up into a future where, and I've talked about this before, where the smartphone that is in our back pocket isn't the primary means by which people will consume content in the future. You have to remember that when podcasting started, we didn't have smartphones. The iPhone didn't exist. Right? We didn't. And most of us were listening on our audio devices. Some of us had an iRiver, some had an iPod. And I remember that when this happened, we were all struggling at the same time back 15 years ago and now 14 years ago, trying to figure out why certain text appeared on these devices the way that they did. And we learned that was a mixture of ID3 tagging, which are the things that go inside of a media file itself, or, and in fact, in most cases, information from the RSS feed, which has been extended a couple of different times. So that combined with this information of news today, and also a couple of clients last week and maybe today, made me think that this was a worthy topic. So let's explain why I mean micromanaging here. So micromanaging by default, I'm not a big fan of it. I have been a manager. I have been the vice president of advertising agencies. I've ran large teams. I'm not a micromanager, because micromanaging, by definition almost, means you have to look at the current as the most important thing. What's happening right now? And I totally get it. You got to ship something. There are today's problems, there are tomorrow's problems. So micromanagers always look at today's problems first. I'm not a big today's problems kind of guy. I can do it, but it's not where my head goes. If you focus on today's problems, you only focus on today's ecosystem. And it makes you start asking silly questions like, well, why should I bother with episode level artwork? I never see it. Okay. Why should I worry about writing show notes in such a way that they're displayable on an iWatch, or an Apple Watch, because I don't have one of those. And only 9% of the downloads happen there. Why is it, if Spotify isn't making good formatted show notes, why don't I just not even do it? Because, Spotify, they don't display links when I push them in the text. Oh boy. So here's my answer to all of those things, right? And the answer is your micromanaging is getting in the way of future-proofing. Look, we do some things, the people who are responsible for creating the content and making sure that it is distributed to the widest bits possible, as far and wide as possible. We have to think about a lot of things. Not just, did we make an audio file that sounds good? But have we done all the other things? Have we filled out all the appropriate spots that you, on the other side, may never see? But have we thought about that? Because in order for it to get to as many places as possible and look and sound as good as possible, we have some certain ways to do things. And here's the weird thing. Those things don't make a lot of sense. I had a client last week. We were talking about sharing content on social media. The media hosting platform we use, Libsyn, allows you to write a tweet and schedule when that tweet will be sent out. And then that tweet that you wrote will go out at that scheduled time along with one of three options. There is, you get to pick where the link goes, because it doesn't just send out text, it sends out a link somewhere so that Twitter can build a fancy little card. And your options for that would be, you can send it a link to the libsyn directory that I think no one uses, so that's not a good option, even though I believe it's the default choice. You can send them to the blog post that you've written about the episode, which I also don't think is a great choice because that's a multiple click sittage. Or you can send them, you can use the link to the direct MP3 file, which is what I recommend. Always. And about half the clients challenge me on that. And I'm okay with being challenged. I do not mind it. Trust me when I say this, I do not mind being challenged. But at some point in time, they have to recognize that there are certain things that we're doing for tomorrow as much as they are today. So not only is that direct link the best thing to make them easily play the file immediately, but I'm also thinking about the future when, on Facebook, for example, Facebook decides to change its system and say, when we see an MP3 file, why don't we just play the MP3 file in the status update, as opposed to linking them off of Facebook? Ask any Facebook marketer you want, and they will tell you that anytime you want to send somebody off of Facebook, bad idea. That's why Facebook devalues links to YouTube and upvalues native video. They don't want people leaving Facebook. So it's only a matter of time, I think, that Facebook modifies their plan so that when they see an MP3 file, let's just make a player right here. Let's go grab the information from the ID3 tag, because we're using smart future-proofing consultants who filled out properly ID3 tags, which have their own limitations, so maybe those get extended too, so that we can keep somebody sitting right here. Clients say, well, I use Apple Podcasts and they're no longer using the episode artwork, so why should I even bother with episode artwork? Well, because it's not the only place that does it. And more importantly, they may not do it tomorrow. Same thing with Spotify. Spotify descriptions all look terrible. Why don't I just write my descriptions for Spotify, one block of text without any links whatsoever? Because this is Spotify's first effort at doing this. They will change. It's hard for them because they got to balance the needs of their music providers. How do they also do that with podcasters too? It's not easy for them, but I promise you it will all change. So when you start micromanaging, you're thinking about the way things work today. But for those of us that are thinking about the future, maximum compatibility, cross-posting, cope, create once, publish everywhere, maybe, finally, one of these days, we'll get there. But you have to acquiesce. You have to say, I don't know why this is being recommended, but it's being recommended, and I probably need to do it. Because even though it's not something I can see, I'm paying this person dollars to think about the future. Maybe I should take their advice. I'm not trying to vague this. I'm not trying to be passive aggressive. I mean, every one of my clients that does this, I'd let them know immediately, this is what's happening and you probably should not do it. So it's not like I only bitch about it here. I don't bitch about it to them. I just tell them flat out. That's probably not a good idea. I'm thinking about the future. When you do this for something you don't know about, you're stopping me from doing that. I'm thinking about the future. When you start micromanaging, you get in the way. Seems like a waste. So, but it's okay. This is just knowledge. This is about information. This is about sharing. This is about educating my clients, which I do every time it comes up. And you know what? Here's the deal. They get it all the time. You need some help figuring out the future of your podcast and how you can continue going forward. Hey, contact me. This is what I do, clearly. Contact me, evo@podcastlaunch.pro. Go to podcastlaunch.pro and check out all the stuff that I do. And I'll be back tomorrow with yet another podcast pontifications. Cheers.